All right. In other news, LOL told you so. Tesla has officially, well, I don't know. Does it count as a Tesla announcement when
At,
Elon
at,
tweets it?
at this point, I feel like legally no,
Right?
but probably yes, if that makes any sense. I think he's like not allowed anymore. I don't remember.
Yeah, I
I know
don't know.
there was something going on with him and his tweets and what they were allowed to be and what they weren't allowed to be a while ago. I don't remember what the ending of all of that was, but he has said early next year, which at this point could be like days from now. Um, there will be fully self-driving subscription services available instead of one large purchase. So if you like lease your car, you could subscribe to it instead of buy it. Also, apparently, the pricing just went up by $2,000.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, it's one of those things where I get it. I understand why full self-driving is expensive because there's a ton of software development and it's ongoing. It's not like you can, this isn't Final Fantasy 2. You can't just, no, my point is you can't just like write
Ship
it
and forget it.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
ship
Yeah.
it and forget about it. There's going to constantly be new edge cases that you're going to discover that like the data processing and data storage that you're going to have to maintain on an ongoing basis in order to keep learning and keep improving and keep remapping the world, because the world it's so inconvenient. The world is always changing, right? I understand why you have to pay a mess ton of money for full self-driving capability on your car, whether it's a Tesla or whatever else it is in the future. But that doesn't mean that I don't have to be bummed that I can't just pay for it once. Now, for now, they are still offering the option to pay for it once. But what we also don't know is what that looks like in the future. TeamViewer, for example, you used to be able to buy just once. I own a perpetual license for TeamViewer 12, which is why I refuse to update from TeamViewer 12, because now with TeamViewer, whatever we're on, 15 or 16 or something like that, there is no option to buy it outright. You absolutely must subscribe to it as a service. So nothing would technically prevent Tesla from saying, you bought full self-driving 1.0. This is full self-driving 2.0, and we're not off. It's got support for the rocket boosted acceleration on the Roadster 2. In order to account for that, we really had to fine tune some things. So you really need the new software. Nothing would also prevent them from just sunsetting the original one. And Tesla has a long and proud history of announcing programs and then sort of unexpectedly or with some warning sunsetting them, whether it's the referral program or the free supercharging or whatever the case may be. So what this is Tesla telegraphing what the future is going to look like. Full self-driving, buying it outright is either going to go away if we stay on this trajectory, or it's going to get prohibitively expensive to the point where it just doesn't make sense anymore. And subscriptions are going to be a thing. But for those of you who are, over my dead body, subscriptions for my car that I own, I have some words of comfort for you. Don't worry, because in the future, it won't matter that you never actually own the car you bought, because by the time self-driving is actually practical to use, you will not be buying a car. Because remember, guys,
better way of saying it.
I'm not just talking about the capability to fully self-drive. That could be sooner. I'm talking about full self-driving being actually put my feet up in the back seat and read a book safe.
Have a nap.
Like
no awareness required type of stuff.
That's right. Every edge case that could possibly come up, that car is going to know what to do. And not only that, but that level of capability has been around so long that notoriously slow legislators are going to have actually created laws to allow these things to be used without you paying attention to them on public roads. By the time that happens, you will not buy a car. That's the whole idea. The fleet is just going to drive around Uber style, and it'll be pay as you go, baby. The fleet owner will pay for the subscriptions, and that is the future, whether you freaking like it or not. That's coming for you, because there's so many things about it that are just, I mean, governments are going to eat this up. What? Whoa, hold on a second. And businesses too. I've already seen the parking regulations here in the area where we live go way down because cities are trying to get fewer cars parking. I forget what it is, but in an average city, there's something like 7 or like 9 parking stalls for every car, because grocery store, home, work, these are all places that kind of like everyone Zerg rushes to all at once. And these are parking stalls that sit empty the vast majority of the time. So for cities to be able to claw back parking space, for businesses to be able to build out, for property developers to be able to build out buildings with far less parking in them and be able to justify it. I mean, there's apartment buildings in Vancouver that you can buy now that do not have a parking stall assigned to them, that you cannot get a parking stall assigned to. You are just expected to not own a car. So it's happening, and I'm sure chat, which I'm not looking at, is full of people who live in rural Utah or whatever, like, they'll pry my truck for my cold dead fingers. Yeah, of course, there's always going to be places where that's not going to be the case. But when I talk about the future, I'm not talking about the 1930s. I'm talking about the future. Places where it is the same as it has been for 100 years. Yeah, it'll probably be a little slower. So it's just like when I talk about, you know, fiber to the home being the future. Yeah, it's going to take a long time in a lot of areas, but that doesn't change that that's the direction we're going.
Specialized work vehicles and stuff like that is not really what he's talking about. It's like, yeah, it's these like mass commodity usage cars. Like if you use your car essentially twice a day to go to work and to go home, or to like go to your friend's house or something and to go home on the weekend, and that's basically it. If you think about it, that asset is more or less being wasted while it's just sitting there. Yes, it loses value the more you drive it around and the more you use it and stuff like that. But if you could use it at those times, it would be more valuable. So even the potential idea, which I don't really think will be a thing, but is where you could like buy a car and sign it up for a service where it goes around and drives and picks people up. Maybe that'll be a thing. Man, what's even the name of it?
I think Tesla has said that they want to allow people to kind of sublet their cars that they own into the Tesla like fleet. I think this is something they've already talked about. Something else occurred to me too. ICBC, so that's our local insurance monopoly that exists for whatever reason. ICBC recently changed a lot of the way they're handling insurance to be more tied to the driver and less tied to the vehicle. So that's yet another thing that is happening as the world shifts to owners just having their own insurance and vehicles just being like a thing that sits on the curb until you get into it and drive it somewhere. And to be clear, guys, the people who are upset about this, trust me, it's not like I'm not with you. I want to own my own car so that it's like right there ready for me to use, and I don't have to deal with someone else's smelly dog or whatever that was in the back of this shared vehicle. Like, trust me, I get it. It's not that I'm against you. It's just that this is happening. So
I wouldn't be surprised if there was like premium, like high availability options.
Oh, for sure.
Where when a vehicle was not being used, it like parked itself by you. You know what I mean?
And it'll get all machine learning-y, and it'll know like approximately what times people like to go where. And once you've got enough people using the service, it's going to it's kind of like anything. Like, okay, ABCs of Gaming sells anywhere from 40 to 60 units a day on LTT Store. And it's just like once you reach a certain scale, you get that level of predictability. Like it just happens.
Right. So you guys know how much to order and when to order it, that kind of stuff.
Like everyone thinks that they're an individual snowflake, but actually there are just patterns that start to emerge once the data set gets big enough. And that's how, Facebook and Google have gone and made a fortune, right? So yeah, it's happening, and you know what? They can pry my Volt from my cold dead fingers, and they might just do such a thing. But I doubt that my youngest child will see any purpose in learning to drive. Like at
Your youngest, but
yeah,
not
12
your oldest.
years. 12 years. I suspect my son, for a variety of reasons, like aside from just like
Wanting to learn it.
I think he would just want to regardless.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of a control freak. And well, like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I want to operate my vehicle. I am quite certain that I can operate my own vehicle in a way that is safer than an AI will be able to operate it for a very, very long time, because I do things that are not technically legal, but improve my safety on the road. So perfect example, okay? If it's raining, instead of staying in exactly the middle of my lane, what I will do is I will go and I will just I'll ride the dotted line, because I know that there are kind of divots in the road where the tires travel the most, where water tends to pool and it's more likely to hydroplane. That's put a bird on it, So if nobody else is on the road, the way that I would drive is absolutely illegal, but from a not crashing into a barrier standpoint is safer. And in much the same way, I will often maintain like crazy buffer zones around vehicles that I, think might not be able to see me very well, or that I have been observing for some time and I find their behavior to be erratic. I'm a very defensive driver. So for a long time, it will be, even if a self-driving car is safer than the average driver, it will probably be safer for me to operate my vehicle than to allow a robot to do it. However, compared to me in a distracted state, like if I'm hungry and I need to eat something, well, I could probably let FSD take over.
And I think you're going to run into some issues there with people that want to think that, but probably shouldn't.
Oh man, I know so many of those.
And like,
yeah, Luke, what are you saying, by the way?
Nothing. I think it's going to be interesting, because the people aren't going to want to admit that they should just let a car drive itself.
Oh yeah. Whereas,
and like I think in a lot of cases it just should, because of that like right now not good enough, whatever. But once it is good enough, the permanent awareness is going to be so huge, because the amount of things that can distract someone while they're driving is very high. And to assume that you can always at every single point in time be as aware as the end goal of this thing, or at least even close to the approved by government goal of this thing, is going to be is probably going to be incredible.
Easton Lovelace says Linus is describing how motorcycle riders have to drive all the time. Yes, they're good habits. They're good. I do ride, and they're good habits. If you drive like you ride, the likelihood of getting into an accident, I mean, it depends how you ride, of course. But if you ride safely, if you ride defensively, then it's good habits for always. Just maintaining a lot of space around you. I mean, the motorcycle is a fun one. Like my wife doesn't like it, obviously, that I ride the bike. And my whole defense to her is like, look, yes, if I get in an accident on the bike, it's worse. I'm a pancake, basically. But the odds of me getting in an accident on the bike, I would argue, are significantly lower. I have so much, like, I have had times where I was on the bike, someone went and changed lanes without freaking looking at all. And because I was on the bike, not only did I have an extra like meter or two of space before they would make contact with me that I was able to use to get out of the way, but because of my ability to instantly accelerate and not to mention brake faster than a cage, I was able to get out of the way. I would have gotten into an accident in that case at no fault of my own if I had been in my car.
I've also noticed when driving around, because I have not ever been on a bike, but I've noticed when driving around that in like annoying situations, the best people to kind of like, that like no contact befriend, if you know what I mean. Like you don't necessarily even see each other, but like
Yeah.
you're clearly not being jerks to each other, is usually the people on bikes, because they are usually paying more attention. And especially in like traffic jam style situations, people in cars, like almost so many features in modern cars are like, okay, you don't hear it anymore. Okay, you don't feel the road anymore. Okay, it like
Yeah.
drives itself progressively more and more. Like there's all these things that are going to lull you into less and less awareness because you don't have to pay as much attention. And then bikes are like just not that at all. So.
Meandres orbitalis figures there's a little bit of natural selection at work. Motorcycle riders are generally better because the bad ones don't stick around after making mistakes. Yeah, okay. Sure.